Imagine being arrested. Not for murder, not for theft. Maybe because someone accused you of a crime. Maybe because you owed money. Maybe because you offended the wrong person. Now imagine being thrown into a stone room. No trial date, no release date, no lawyer, no appeal. The door slams shut behind you, and for all you know, you may never see daylight again. For many prisoners in medieval Europe, prison wasn't a punishment. It was a slow descent into misery, disease, starvation, and death. And most modern people wouldn't survive a week. When people think about medieval justice, they usually imagine executions, hangings, beheadings, public punishments. But far fewer people think about prison. The reason is simple. Medieval prisons were never designed to rehabilitate anyone. In fact, many weren't designed for long-term imprisonment at all. They were places where people waited for trial, waited for punishment, waited for ransom, or waited to die. To understand how terrifying that could be, we need to step inside a medieval prison. And once you're inside, leaving is never guaranteed. Part 1. The arrest. The nightmare often began without warning. A knock at the door, a local official, a lord soldier, a town guard. Sometimes there was evidence, sometimes there wasn't. Medieval justice was rarely consistent. In many places, your social status mattered far more than your innocence. If someone powerful accused you, your situation could become desperate very quickly. And once arrested, you often entered a system with few protections. No presumption of innocence, no modern legal rights, no guarantee anyone would help you. Your fate depended on people you couldn't control, and that was only the beginning. Part 2. The cell. Now imagine your new home. A stone chamber, cold, dark, wet, and very small. Many medieval prisons were located beneath castles, inside towers, or deep below city buildings. Some cells had tiny windows, others had none. Fresh air was rare, sunlight was rarer, moisture covered the walls, mold grew in corners. The smell was impossible to escape. Human waste, rotting straw, sweat, disease, everything mixed together in a confined space. And if the prison was crowded, conditions became even worse. You might share the room with strangers, criminals, debtors, political prisoners, or people awaiting execution. Privacy did not exist. Comfort did not exist. And every night, the darkness returned. Part 3. Food and survival. The prison itself often provided very little food. In some regions, prisoners depended entirely on family and friends. If nobody brought food, you might simply starve. Think about that. Your survival could depend on whether someone outside still cared about you. Bread, water, thin soup. That was often the best you could hope for. Malnutrition was common. Illness followed quickly. And many prisoners became dangerously weak long before their sentence ended. Some never left their cells alive. Not because they were executed, because they were forgotten. Part 4. Disease. Perhaps the greatest threat wasn't violence, it was disease. Medieval prisons were perfect breeding grounds for infection. Poor sanitation, crowded conditions, contaminated water, little ventilation. Once illness entered a prison, it could spread rapidly. Fever, dysentery, tuberculosis, skin infections. The list seemed endless. Medical treatment was almost non-existent. Many prisoners received no care at all. And if disease began moving through the prison population, death could become routine. One prisoner became sick, then another, until entire sections of a prison were suffering together. The walls that kept people inside also trapped disease with them. Part 5. The dungeon. Some prisoners faced something even worse. The dungeon. Today, movies often exaggerate medieval dungeons, but the reality was horrifying enough. Deep underground, little or no natural light, constant dampness, cold temperatures year-round. Some prisoners spent months in near darkness. Others were chained to walls or floors. Time itself became difficult to track. Days blended into weeks, weeks into months. Many prisoners described losing their sense of reality. Without sunlight, without meaningful human contact, without hope, the mind could become its own prison. Part 6. Torture. Not every prisoner was tortured, but torture existed, and the threat alone could be terrifying. Authorities often believed confessions were the key to justice. If a confession couldn't be obtained voluntarily, some believed it should be extracted. The methods varied across Europe. Some involved stretching the body. Others involved suspension, restraints, or prolonged suffering. The purpose wasn't always punishment. It was information, or at least what authorities believed was information. Unfortunately, people in extreme pain will often say almost anything to make that pain stop, and countless false confessions followed. Part 7. Waiting. Perhaps the worst part of prison wasn't the hunger, or the disease, or even the torture. It was uncertainty. Imagine waking up every morning not knowing what would happen next. Will you be released? Put on trial? Transferred? Executed? Nobody tells you. Nobody explains anything. You simply wait. Day after day, month after month. For many prisoners, uncertainty became its own form of punishment, a punishment that never truly ended. Part 8. Escape. Could prisoners escape? Sometimes, but it was rare. Castle prisons were designed to prevent exactly that. Thick stone walls, locked gates, armed guards, and even if you escaped the cell itself, you still had to escape the town, the lord, and the authorities searching for you. Failure could mean harsher punishment or death. Most prisoners never attempted it. The risks were simply too great. Part 9. Those who never left. Many medieval prisoners disappeared from history entirely. No records, no graves, no memorials, only silence. Some died from disease, some starved, some were executed. Others simply vanished inside a system that kept few records of ordinary people. Their stories ended behind stone walls, unnoticed by the outside world, and forgotten by history. The terrifying truth about medieval prisons is that they were never meant to be humane. They were places of waiting, places of suffering, places where disease, fear, and uncertainty became part of everyday life. For some prisoners, release eventually came. For many others, it never did. And perhaps that is what makes medieval prisons so frightening. Not the chains, not the darkness, not even the torture, but the possibility that one day the door could close behind you and never open again. If you enjoyed this journey into the darker side of history, subscribe to the Grim Archive. new dark history videos every week. And tell me in the comments, how long do you think you could survive in a medieval prison?